Want to know the secret to being that high value woman, to being the black cat or the dream girl or whatever you want to call it? The secret is this: you must detach. And that's what I'm going to teach you in today's episode. So let's talk about how to detach and make everyone chase you. Have you ever felt completely consumed by a relationship, anxiously waiting for a text back, overanalyzing everything they said, feeling like your happiness was completely tied to whether or not they chose you? I get it because I've been there. But here's the truth. The most powerful thing you can do for yourself, for your relationships, and for the future of your love life is detachment. Detachment is not about playing games or pretending you don't care. It's about owning your energy, refusing to overinvest, and stepping into your self-worth. And ironically, detachment is also what makes people gravitate towards you. It's the energy of someone who doesn't chase, who doesn't beg, and who doesn't cling. So in today's episode, we're breaking down what detachment actually is and why it's so attractive, how attachment creates suffering and why you struggle to let go, the step-by-step process to master detachment in dating, how detachment allows men the space to pursue you, and why rejection isn't what you think it is, and how it's actually a blessing. By the end of this episode, you are going to feel free. So let's get into it. Okay, let's start with: what is detachment? Detachment is not playing games or acting cold. It is not pretending you don't care. It is not avoiding relationships or pushing people away. That is emotional avoidance, and we don't want that. Detachment is knowing that you are enough without external validation. It's refusing to chase anyone. Your energy is selective. It's allowing things to flow instead of forcing them. It's trusting that what's meant for you will come effortlessly. And it's a deep sense of self-trust. It is knowing that you will be okay no matter what. A detached woman is just the most attractive energy in the world. A detached woman is powerful and she's free. She doesn't overinvest in people who don't show up for her. She does not find herself in situationships where she's being completely devalued and abandoning herself and what it is that she wants. She knows her worth and she doesn't try to convince anyone to choose her. She has a quiet confidence to her that is magnetic. She is a chooser. She is not a chaser. She chooses who to be with. She does not chase after love. Think about the last time you needed reassurance or validation from someone in dating. What did that feel like? What would have changed if you were to detach instead? I imagine it would have felt so calm, so peaceful. We cause ourselves so much unnecessary suffering and despair. We ravage our self-esteem by becoming way too attached. And we're going to look at exactly why we do that and how to not do that anymore. So let's talk a little bit about why attachment causes suffering. Most suffering comes from attachment to an outcome, when we believe that we need a certain result in order to be happy. Now, this applies to all areas of life, not just relationships. We're just focusing on relationships for today's episode. So for example, you might feel like if he texts me back, I'll feel good. If he doesn't, I'll feel rejected. If he commits, I'll feel secure. If he doesn't, I'll feel unworthy. Think about how many attachments you're making in your life, how many conditions you're placing on your self-worth, on your well-being, on your emotional well-being. We do it all the time. As soon as I have this much money in the bank, as soon as I reach my goal weight, as soon as I have a big group of girlfriends to go out with, as soon as. Most people outsource their happiness. Most people outsource their feelings of worth. We outsource it to the external. And what does that lead to? Chronic unhappiness and dissatisfaction. Not to mention desperation. Desperation, opposite, is the complete opposite from detachment. It's off-putting. It is a repellent energy, whereas being detached is a magnetic, attractive energy. Let's talk now about the science behind attachment and pain. Pain is caused by resistance to what is. When reality doesn't match our expectations, we suffer. And when you fight against reality, you will always lose. You might feel like, I should have a boyfriend. I should be married. I should be having babies by now. I should be at this point in my life. And you're not. And because you're not, you suffer. And you feel like it's not fair. It feels like there's some conspiracy against you. Why does everyone else get to be happy? Why does everyone else get to have the things that I want to have? This is a recipe for a miserable, miserable life. And believe me, I get it. I used to live in that space. The happiest place to be is exactly where you are. I know that that's not always easy. I know that you don't want to be where you are sometimes, but what's the alternative? To lament over it, to think about how unjust everything is, to be jealous of everyone around you in your life or on social media that has the things that you want, that creates so much suffering for yourself. And I'm not saying give up on your dreams, give up on what you want. Absolutely not. Detachment is about having that inner knowing of what's meant for me will be mine. Okay, so right now, this is where I'm at, and I'm going to embrace where I'm at in all its beauty. Because there is always a beauty in the present moment. The happiest place to be is exactly where you are. Remember that, write that down. There is no suffering in the present. There is no anxiety in the present. Anxiety is future oriented. It is imagining a future in which things get overwhelming and you don't trust yourself to be able to handle it. And so that's why we spiral. They say depression comes from ruminating over the past mistakes, and maybe the missteps you may have made that have prevented you from being exactly where you are. Again, both cases produce suffering. I mean, every life coach, every self-help guru, everybody that we're unanimous on this will tell you that happiness comes from rooting yourself in the present and embracing exactly where you are right now. And trusting that no matter what happens, you'll be able to navigate and you will be okay. We're going to keep coming back to the name of this podcast. Next is the default mode network. So this is a network, we can call it the DMN, that is in the brain, and it keeps you stuck in overanalysis and emotional loops. So the more you ruminate about a person, the deeper those neural pathways become, making it harder for you to detach. The most important thing for you to understand about your brain is that it's not wired to make you happy. It is wired for familiarity, not happiness. And this is why breaking old patterns can feel so uncomfortable, even when you know something isn't serving you. Your brain doesn't care if a relationship is good or bad. It only recognizes what feels safe and predictable. And for some people, narcissists and toxicity are safe and predictable because you've been there before. You know what to expect. This explains why so many of us return to toxic exes or stay stuck in unfulfilling relationships or resist change even when deep down we want something better. We know that we deserve something better. The unknown feels risky, so your brain tries to pull you back to what is familiar, even if that means settling for less than you deserve. But real growth, real love, and real happiness come from you breaking the cycle, challenging your conditioning, and rewiring your mind to something greater. But that is a whole other discussion. We will get into all these little side topics I'm bringing up more deeply in future episodes. Detachment is freedom. When you detach from outcomes, you are no longer controlled by someone else's actions. So to make this a little bit more granular and tangible, I'll explain to you what this looks like by how I detached in the early dating phases with my husband. So as some of you may already know, I married an ex-boyfriend. We dated in high school. I was head over heels for him. He was like, about me. He broke up with me because I wanted things to be more serious. Anyway, over the span of 11 years, we would weave in and out of each other's lives, like every few years. And every time the chemistry was palpable, there was just something there. My woman intuition was just flagging around this man. Like, okay, like there's something here. And I would get my hopes up. And I would think that, okay, like we're going to start dating now, we're going to get married, and then nothing would happen. Maybe there were a few times where he texted me after and we would talk a little bit, but he didn't ask me out, didn't ask me to get together, and then he would vanish from the face of the earth. And then every few years we would run into each other again and the same thing again. Then I had my summer of me. Yes, we will do a whole episode on this because the summer of me is really the story of detachment. It's the story about how I finally, after over a decade, being like the grand master attachment queen, just attaching only onto guys who were not good for me, who couldn't give me what I wanted, and completely not giving a chance to the ones who would be good to me. Anyway, after, living the same relationship over and over again, I finally was like, that's it. I've had enough of myself. Like if I was in a relationship with myself at that point, I would have broken up with me because I was like, that is enough. Like enough of this, enough of your nonsense. Get it together already. So I did this intense work on myself over the span of a summer. Then I ran into my high school ex, and all of a sudden he was completely enamored with me. Even though, mind you, like we had run into each other not long before that, and he was whatever. But all of a sudden he was compelled to date me, and we went on our first date. It was 7 hours long. But here's the thing. Rather than getting so excited and so swept up in the magic of it all, I forced myself. It wasn't easy. I forced myself to remain detached. Did that mean that I wasn't excited? Absolutely not. I was, and I wanted to see where this would go, but rather than attaching so much onto the outcome here, I instead forced myself to just remain pleasantly curious, to just be as present as possible and to see where this would go. And I also forced myself to keep my options open. I mean, I had other guys on the roster because that's what happens when you detach. You become magnetic. And all of a sudden, even though I'd been in a dating drought for such a long time, all these other guys were after me. And so it was the early phases of dating my husband. We weren't official. We weren't anything. So I was talking to other guys. I don't know if I was actually going on dates, but like texting, talking, planning dates. I fully allowed myself to consider all the possible ways my life could go. Okay, maybe me and this guy from high school will end up together. What a magical story that would be. I've been chasing the magical story my entire dating career. I'm a writer. I'm always looking for, well, isn't that crazy? And this sign and this sign and like I was always looking for the story. Wow, this would be an amazing story. That would be great. Or maybe I'll end up with this other guy that I've been talking to on the phone for a while who lives in the South. Like he's really great. He's really interesting. Or this other guy that my mom had dug up because by this point I was 29. My mom was desperate for me to get married. She's calling everyone she knows. Like, do you know any guys for my daughter? And she actually found one that sounded pretty decent. So him and I had been talking and we're considering going on a date. Or maybe I'll be single for a while longer. And you know what? At that point, I loved my single life so much. I was so happy. I was vibrating on just such a high frequency. I loved my life. And I was like, that won't be so bad either. I could be single for a while longer. I fully let myself entertain all possible ways this could go. I had a preference for how I wanted it to go, but I refused to attach to that one outcome because that's the mistake I had kept making with him and with a lot of other guys over and over again. Instead, I allowed myself to just feel peace and calm and clarity, to just have fun, to enjoy dating him without being so stressed about it. Like, is he serious? What does this mean? And oh, he went a few hours without texting me back. Is he losing interest? I caught myself whenever I noticed myself going in that direction because that's what it felt familiar to me, to ruminate and overthink like that. And I stopped myself. And fortunately, it did work out. And we got serious pretty quickly. And we have now been married for almost 10 years and we have 4 delicious children. So that's what detachment can look like. So let's get into the steps, okay? How can you become a master of detachment in your dating life? Step 1, stop attaching your happiness to someone else's actions. When you seek validation, people sense it. My business coach said it like this, and even though I'll say it to you guys, even though when I talked about this on Instagram, people got very offended. Neediness is creepy. It is. Desperation, the stink of desperation poisons everything. It hangs in the air. I know that there are reasons behind why we feel needy and desperate. I got a comment in one of the posts on this, and this girl was like, how dare you shame people for their trauma responses? I'm not shaming you because I had all the trauma responses. I've been there. I've lived through it. I'm just telling you what is. And it's not a life sentence. This is something I wish I knew earlier in life. I think I just thought, okay, I am this way and I'll always be this way because I don't know how to stop being this way. And back then, nobody was talking about growth or development. There was no TikTok or Instagram. There weren't all these coaches. There was no podcast, or if there was, I don't even know. I don't even think that became a thing until way later. There was no information on this. But now I know, and now you know, you can absolutely change. I mean, you guys know what I was like. I've already told some stories from my past on this podcast, and those who have been following me for a while have really seen my journey. I was an absolute disorganized attachment mess. Oh, speaking of, should I do an episode on how I overcame my disorganized attachment style? Let me know. You can email me, leave comments, And not only that, I've been doing this for 15 years. I've seen women from all over the world change beyond anything they ever could have conceived of or dreamed of. I do this work with my one-on-one clients. So it just, if you're going to leave with anything, know that I can be this woman. I can be this woman that I've always wanted to be, but I didn't think it would be possible to be. Okay. So stop attaching your happiness to someone else. Overanalyzing creates anxious energy. A late text all of a sudden becomes a crisis, and you're solving problems that don't even exist yet. Oh my gosh, how many times I've seen that.
I have one client who had it in her mind that if she slept with a guy too soon, he would lose interest. And she had started seeing this guy, and things got hot and heavy one night, and she ended up sleeping with him. And she started panicking. She started panicking before there was anything to panic over. I mean, the relationship was going great. And his texts, she sensed, were slightly less flirty than they had been. And she started to panic. She was like, Sabrina, oh my God, like, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe he's losing interest. What a jerk. And she crafted this whole angry text message to send him. And she sent it to me first. I'm like, do not, under any circumstances, send him that text message. Do not. So she didn't. She practiced the power of the pause. And then he reemerged and everything was fine and normal. And the relationship went back on track. But she completely could have blown up the entire relationship because of her own pre-existing beliefs, because of her own insecurities that she was projecting onto the relationship, because of her attaching onto some concept or some idea. Waiting for someone else's action in order to feel okay, that is not detachment. If a man pulls away, it doesn't mean you did something wrong. If a man goes a certain amount of time without texting you, it doesn't mean he's mad at you or that he's losing interest. The right things flow effortlessly. If you have to force it, then it's not meant for you. Instead, what you need to do is create space between feeling and reacting. That is the most powerful thing you can do for yourself. You want to respond instead of react. When you respond, you get to choose. You get to choose how to respond. When you react, you are a slave to your emotions, and you just have these reflexive knee-jerk reactions that are usually emotionally generated and usually coming from a place of our past hurt, our past pain, our past trauma. Don't make someone else's behavior mean something about you. Most of the time, it doesn't. And make this your mantra. My happiness is my responsibility. No one else controls it. That's the biggest thing with detachment. You have to stop trying to control how other people are feeling or thinking and behaving, and instead take complete ownership for yourself, your actions, your beliefs, how you're showing up. Step 2, stop over-investing in people who haven't earned it. Oh, I see this all the time. We think the more I give, the more I invest, the more he's going to come to care about me. But no, it's like the opposite is true. The more you invest, the more he's going to come to look at you like a doormat and take you for granted. And the more you're going to come to care about him, because that's what happens when we invest in someone and we give to them. We come to care about them even more. Don't always explain yourself. Don't always be the one reaching out. Don't always make the plan. Don't be the one to fill every silence. Does anyone else do this? I used to do this when I was dating. If there was an awkward silence or pause, I would feel like I needed to fill this, or he's going to think that I'm boring. I need to work so hard to be impressive. No. If there's a silence, let him think of something creative to say. It doesn't always have to be you. Don't chase. Do not chase. Let people step up and earn a place in your life. Chasing makes people run. Surrender instead of forcing things to be a certain way. And if you're working so hard, it's just not meant for you, and that's okay. So for example, if you stop texting first, notice if there is an energy shift. Pay attention to that. Pay attention to what happens when you pull back a bit. Sometimes, and I've seen this a lot, you might notice that whenever you pull away, he comes back and he's like trying to win you over. But then the problem starts all over again because you haven't done the inner work. You haven't gotten rid of that neediness in the first place. So you're going through the actions, but you can only fake it for so long. It has to come from a genuine place of having that self-worth, being that high value woman, and of course, detaching. Now, step 3 is utilize the let them theory. Stop trying to control outcomes. The let them theory is super trendy right now. It was developed by Mel Robbins, and essentially it goes like this. However someone behaves, you say, let them. If he doesn't text back, let him. If he says he doesn't want to be in a relationship right now, let him. If he pulls away, let him. Why? Because people always reveal who they are through their actions. You don't need to chase, persuade, or convince someone to show up for you. When you step back and allow people to make their own choices, you gain clarity instead of confusion. Letting them go isn't about losing. It's not a loss. It's winning. You win when you stop pouring energy into someone who isn't fully choosing you. You win when you let go of people who aren't in alignment with what you deserve. You win when you trust that the right person will naturally step up without pressure. You will never have to convince your soulmate that he or she is your soulmate. They will know it too. Instead of thinking, I need him to validate me, shift to, I trust that the right person will show up for me naturally. Step 4, men want to pursue you. So give him the space to do that. Your job as a woman is to send those green light signals to convey interest. He wants to feel like, okay, if I approach her, she's not going to shoot me down, reject me, and make me feel like a fool. But then give him the space to pursue you. And don't sell yourself on him before he has sold anything. We do that a lot of the time. We just attach to the idea of someone. We get so wrapped up in a fantasy of what could be instead of looking at the reality. Now, back to getting a man to choose you. You have to give him that space. A man wants to text you because he wants to, not because he feels like he has to in order to avoid upsetting you. If he feels like his behavior is being monitored or pressured, he'll instinctively pull away because it disrupts the natural flow of attraction. You have to give a man the space to come to you. When you do all the giving and all the investing, you're in a completely lopsided relationship and you set yourself up for heartbreak. I'm sure you've experienced this, and I have seen this so many times. So as a reframe here, instead of thinking I need him to validate me, shift to I trust that the right person will show up for me naturally. No force. You will never have to force love. Love is like a river. It flows. Now let's talk a little more about how to build a full, meaningful life to become naturally detached. When you don't have enough going on in your life, you outsource your emotional needs to a relationship. And that is just too much pressure for one person. A high-value woman has a life that is so full, so meaningful, and so fun that a relationship is just the cherry on top. I don't want you to play hard to get. I want you to be hard to get. How do you do that? Create a life that you love. Fill your life with passions, goals, hobbies, friendships, purpose. Make friends. Get outside your comfort zone. Join a league. Volunteer. There are so many people out there in need. There are so many ways that you could give back in ways that only you are capable of giving back. You could visit the elderly in a hospital. Do you know how many elderly patients have no family around, no one visiting them? Go and visit them. Hear their stories. You could volunteer at a soup kitchen. You can volunteer at a rehab. You can volunteer with children who come from broken, unstable homes. You could join a big sister, little sister, or big brother, little brother program. There are so many ways to give back. Set meaningful goals for yourself. This is such an effective way to build your self-esteem. Maybe you want to learn how to cook from scratch or speak a new language. Maybe you want to train for a marathon or a half marathon. Pick something that you can work towards. When the life you have is already rich and fulfilling, you don't get overly attached to someone because you don't need them in order to feel okay. You have just many sources of okayness in your life. So as a reflection exercise, make a list of 5 things that bring you joy outside of dating and ask yourself, how can I do more of these things? Next, you must prioritize yourself. Don't ever prioritize a man over your needs. Ever, ever, ever. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, and that is your personal hell. You will become a doormat and he will love you less. Don't sell yourself out. Don't eliminate the line of your own boundaries. He will lose respect for you. He will avoid commitment because he knows that you're always there. He'll take you for granted. You'll sell yourself out, and then you'll end up settling for a situation that isn't what you wanted. And then you'll justify staying because since you sold yourself, because you can't fathom the reality of selling yourself out, and you think to yourself, well, I must have done it for a reason. It must be because there's something here. And so you stay, and you work so hard to try to salvage things. Don't do this. Being the detached woman is being the confident woman. Is knowing that she will be okay no matter what, that she'll find the right person for her. She's not going to stay in a relationship because it's better than nothing. She knows if this is not for me, then I'll leave and I'll be fine. And the detached woman is not terrified of rejection. So many of us live with this crippling fear of rejection. But who says rejection is a bad thing? It's not a bad thing. Rejection can sometimes be the biggest blessing in your life. The reason it's so hard to detach is because of our fear. That's what's at the heart of it. This fear of rejection is because we think that it is a reflection of our own worth. But rejection is actually one of the most powerful forms of protection. It redirects you to something better. All that really happened when you got rejected is that someone else realized that this wasn't right before you got the chance to. They just got there first. That's all that happened. You would have gotten there too. This could be in relationships. It could be with jobs. Maybe there's a job that you really, really wanted and they decided that you weren't a fit and you don't understand this. You're like, I'm the perfect fit. But had you gotten that job, you probably would have been miserable. And maybe you've had this experience. I certainly have, of jobs I thought were my dream job and I got rejected, and it led me here where always wanted to be, working for myself, building something myself. You need to trust that you also would have realized that this wasn't right. This wasn't the right thing for you. Rejection hurts. And the reason it hurts so much is because of a system in our brain called the reticular activating system. This is basically the filter system in your brain. It filters out all the potential matches that would treat you right, and it fixates on the one person who isn't choosing you. The RAS system is a network in your brain system that filters what you focus on. It picks up on patterns and evidence that support your existing beliefs. Okay, so how does this show up? If you believe I'm not good enough, your reticular activating system will only show you proof that reinforces this idea. So anytime someone rejects you or a guy isn't interested, that reinforces the belief, I'm not good enough. And that was a pre-existing belief. That didn't come about because of this relationship. That already lived in you, and then something happened and it caused you to interpret the situation in this familiar way, which is, okay, I'm unworthy, I'm not good enough, I'm just gonna end up alone. You have to learn to reframe rejection as a gift. Instead of thinking, why didn't they want me? Shift to, thank you for showing me who you are. I really love the way Jamie Kern puts it in her book, Worthy. She says, I wasn't rejected. My creator hid my worth from them because they weren't part of my story. Isn't that beautiful? I'm sure if you think back on your life to all the instances where you were rejected, you can see that it was a huge blessing in disguise. So I want you to spend some time. This is your homework for the week. Write down a time you felt rejected. How did that situation end up being the best thing for you? I bet you can come up with so many more than you even realize. Remember that holding on to the past blocks new opportunities from coming into your life. And the moment you truly detach is the moment you shift into your highest, most magnetic energy. Now, one thing we didn't really discuss today is detaching from an ex, but we're going to be talking about that in next week's episode, which is all about how to get over a breakup. So make sure you subscribe, ring the bell, follow, like, all the things so that you don't miss out. Now, we really only scratched the surface here on detachment. If today's episode resonated with you, I want to invite you to go even deeper with me in my 3-part live course all about detachment, which will be available exclusively in my inner circle. This course will teach you how to stop obsessing, how to become rejection proof, and how to fully step into your self-worth so you can attract love effortlessly, without chasing, without overanalyzing, without clinging to the wrong people. You'll learn why detachment is the key to confidence and attraction, how to apply the let them theory to relationships, and how to break free from past relationships that no longer serve you. So this live course is happening inside my inner circle. This is my private membership community where you get access to all my content, exclusive workshops, and personal support from me. And right now you can join for just $7 for your first month. So if you're ready to finally let go and step into your most secure, magnetic, high value energy, join now. I'll put the link in the show notes, and I will see you next week. Bye.